My friends, listen closely. Silence isn't weakness, and it's not withdrawal. It's transformation. When you stop reacting, you stop feeding their emotional power supply. It's like unplugging their favorite song mid-note. The brain starts craving the rhythm it once had. Every message you didn't send, every argument you didn't reply to, it all begins to echo in their head like unfinished music. And here's the truth most folks don't realize. Silence is not the absence of sound. It's the presence of control. See, people get addicted to emotional rhythm. When you react, they get their hit of dopamine, that little chemical rush that says, "I still matter." But when you go quiet, that loop breaks. Their brain starts searching for that missing input, the same way someone addicted to caffeine looks for their first cup in the morning. Not because they love you, but because their mind can't handle the vacuum your calm created. It's like deleting their favorite app. Suddenly, they're tapping the empty spot on their screen without even realizing it's gone. Your silence becomes a mirror, and they start seeing themselves differently in it. They start asking questions they never asked when you were explaining everything. Did I mess this up? Why aren't they reacting? Who's giving them attention now? That's the psychological inversion, my friends. You went from being the one chasing peace to being the peace they can't find anywhere else. You stopped being noise and became mystery. And mystery always wins in the long game. You have to understand, when you stay calm, you shift from being predictable to being unpredictable. And that unpredictability is what shakes people. Humans fear what they can't read. They could handle your anger, they could handle your sadness, but your stillness? That's something they can't decode. It's like a locked door in their mind that won't open no matter how many times they try the handle. The silence you gave them isn't emptiness. It's their unfinished story, and every night they rewrite it in their head, trying to give it closure. Some of you think walking away made you lose power. But my friends, walking away is what made you magnetic. You're no longer explaining yourself to those who never listened. You're not trying to prove your worth. Your absence already does that. People realize value only when it stops demanding to be seen. Think of gold buried underground. It doesn't shine for attention, but once it's gone, everyone starts digging for it. That's you. You became the silence they can't live without. So stop checking if they miss you. They do. Not because you were loud, but because you became rare. The calm you have now isn't loneliness, it's discipline, it's emotional freedom. That's the energy that makes your presence unforgettable even when you're not around. They'll replay your silence again and again, looking for signs, waiting for noise, but they'll find none. Because you've leveled up from reaction to reflection. You're not chasing closure anymore. You are closure. So keep your peace, folks. Stay calm. Let silence do the talking. They'll come back eventually, not because you begged, but because peace is addictive and you became the source. That's the Stoic truth. Don't chase. Don't explain. Don't break your stillness for noise. So before you scroll away, I want you to pause for a second and breathe this truth in. You didn't lose anything when you went quiet. You reclaimed everything. That calm you're sitting in right now, that's not loneliness. That's your empire, rebuilding itself brick by brick. You're no longer waiting for a message. You are the message. You're not chasing attention. Your silence is commanding it. Now, I don't want this just floating through your mind like another feel-good quote. I want you to stamp it into your identity. So type this in the comments right now, not for me, but for your own mindset. My silence is my superpower. When you write it, you're not just typing words. You're reminding the universe that you no longer beg for peace. You embody it. And if something inside you stirred while hearing this, if a little voice whispered, "Yeah, that's me," then don't disappear back into the noise. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, my friends. We're not chasing validation here. We're building strength. We're mastering silence. And trust me, this is only the beginning of what you're about to become. Number 1. The reward loop collapse. Why their brain can't let you go. My friends, let's get real for a moment. When you stop chasing someone who was used to your energy, their mind doesn't just miss you, it malfunctions. See, most people don't realize relationships run on invisible chemistry. Every time you replied quickly, laughed at their jokes, or forgave them after a fight, you were feeding their brain little hits of dopamine, that same feel-good chemical that lights up when someone wins a bet or takes a sip of something addictive. You were unknowingly building what I call emotional intermittency, giving them pleasure in unpredictable doses. And the human brain, it gets hooked on that pattern like a slot machine that pays out just enough to keep you spinning the wheel. So when you suddenly stopped reacting, when your messages stopped coming through, when you didn't bite the bait anymore, their brain didn't interpret it as peace. It read it as withdrawal. Their reward loop collapsed, and now they're craving the high you used to give them. It's not love that drives them to check your page at 2 a.m. or scroll through your old messages. It's neurochemical panic. Their mind is looking for its next hit of validation and comfort. And you, my friend, were the supplier. You ever notice how when someone ghosts you, it hurts like detox? That's not an exaggeration. Your body literally reacts the same way it does when withdrawing from a drug. Restlessness, anxiety, mental replay. And that's exactly what happens to them once your silence sets in. They thought they could replace you easily, but it's not that simple. Their new connection can't produce the same pattern because every relationship creates a unique chemical rhythm. Your tone, your timing, your energy, it's all encoded into their nervous system. When that's gone, no one else matches the signal. It's like switching to a new radio station and realizing the song just doesn't hit the same. You might ask, if they're craving me, why don't they come back? Because addiction and pride are old enemies. Their mind wants you, but their ego keeps them stuck. They're trapped between the desire for your energy and the illusion of control. And that's where the haunting begins. They'll try to fill the gap with noise, new people, distractions, achievements, but the silence keeps calling. The same way someone who quits caffeine keeps smelling coffee in the air. They start sensing your absence everywhere. It's chemical, psychological, and karmic all at once. And I know, my friends, silence is not easy for you either. You're detoxing too. You're breaking your own loop of waiting, hoping, reacting. That's why it feels heavy in the beginning. That's why your mind keeps trying to reopen old doors. But here's the truth. Silence isn't punishment. It's purification. It's your brain rewiring itself to stop seeking love in places that drained it. You're teaching your nervous system that peace is the new reward, not their attention. That's why Stoics like Marcus Aurelius taught detachment as freedom, because when you stop being controlled by reaction, you become impossible to manipulate. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's what this silence is doing for you. It's exposing the emotional patterns that used to run your life. It's showing you how much power you gave away through small responses, through constant proving. Now, by doing nothing, you're doing everything. You're forcing their subconscious to confront what they lost. You're showing them what it feels like when the reward loop is gone and peace has replaced chaos. It's strange, isn't it? The very silence they once mocked now has them addicted. They scroll through your energy like someone searching for a familiar scent in a crowd. They won't admit it, but you're still their reference point, the standard they compare everyone to. And that's why silence works like gravity. The more you pull away, the stronger the psychological pull becomes. They'll resist it, deny it, distract themselves, but eventually the craving wins. Because no matter how hard they try, they can't recreate the emotional rhythm you trained into their brain. So don't break your silence, folks. Let the loop collapse. Let their mind feel the vacuum. You're not losing connection, you're shifting power. Your calm is doing the heavy lifting now. It's reprogramming both of you. You to stay still, them to see clearly. That's real stoicism. Not revenge, not pride, but control. Control over your emotions, your energy, and your responses. And the next time you feel tempted to reach out, remind yourself, the moment you react, you restart the cycle. The silence is the cure, not the punishment. You're not ignoring them, you're teaching them the cost of taking peace for granted. They'll come back, not because you begged, but because their own biology will pull them there. But when they do, you'll no longer be chasing closure. You'll be closure. So take a deep breath, my friend, and hold your ground. This is your training. Your silence is not empty, it's disciplined. It's the sound of you becoming unshakable. Write this in the comments to seal it in your mind. I am my own peace. Number 2, the illusion of upgrade. Why replacements feel like cheap imitations. My friends, the human mind is a strange thing. It believes that when something new arrives, it automatically means improvement. We call it an upgrade. New person, new spark, new story. But here's where the illusion begins. The brain doesn't actually fall in love with people. It falls in love with patterns. The chemistry, the rhythm, the emotional texture you created with them. That's what their mind attached to. When they leave you and run towards someone else, they carry that invisible template in their head, expecting to feel the same. But they never do. That's why every replacement starts out loud and ends in quiet confusion. They might tell themselves, this one's different, this one gets me, yet deep inside, their brain is running a silent comparison test. The jokes land differently, the timing feels off, the energy doesn't sync. And that's not about you being better or them being cruel. It's about a neurological echo that won't die. You built what I call an emotional mirage, a projection of familiarity that makes the new feel like the old until reality kicks in. At first, they're convinced it's working, but slowly they start asking themselves questions they can't answer. Why doesn't this feel like before? Why do I miss someone I tried to forget? That's when the haunting begins. See, when two people connect deeply, the brain doesn't just memorize faces or words. It stores emotional fingerprints, tone, pacing, energy, even scent. You became a sensory pattern engraved into their nervous system. When they left, they didn't erase it. They only tried to overlay something new on top of it. But it doesn't match. It's like trying to replace a song halfway through and realizing the rhythm doesn't fit. That's why, no matter how hard they try, the replacement always feels like a remake of an original they can't top. You might wonder why it's so hard for them to admit it, because pride hates nostalgia. They'll convince themselves they've moved on, but their body tells a different story. They'll see someone wearing your perfume, hear a laugh that sounds like yours, or pass by a restaurant you once loved, and suddenly their brain lights up with recognition and longing. That's not a memory, that's a chemical relapse. The new person can't compete with that because the bond you created wasn't just emotional, it was biological. And folks, don't fall for the illusion either. You might see them smiling online, trying to prove how happy they are, but happiness built on pretending doesn't last. It's surface-level dopamine, quick to rise, quick to vanish. What they really miss isn't you texting them or showing up. They miss the peace, the comfort, the steady rhythm you gave their chaos. And when that's gone, every upgrade feels downgraded by comparison. Carl Jung once said that what we deny controls us. And that's exactly what happens here. They deny missing you, but the denial itself becomes obsession. They scroll through other faces, hoping one will trigger that same spark. They replay old memories not to remember you, but to re-experience the chemistry you created. The illusion of upgrade breaks when they realize they weren't chasing love. They were chasing a feeling that only existed with you. It's hard, I know. You probably ask yourself, why wasn't I enough? Why did they need someone else to see what I gave them? But listen closely, you were enough. You were too authentic in a world hooked on stimulation. When people live off emotional highs, real connection feels boring to them until it's gone. They confuse peace with emptiness, and by the time they figure it out, your silence has already built walls around your heart. That's your victory, my friends. You're not replaceable because you were never part of a trend. You were an experience, one they can't download twice. So stay calm. Don't compete with their illusions. Let the mirage fade naturally. Because when it does, they'll see you for what you truly were. The real thing that can't be replicated. Write this in the comments to remind yourself of your power. I am the original, never the copy. Number 3. The paradox of quiet control. How silence creates obsession. My friends, let's talk about something most people completely misunderstand. Silence. The world teaches you that power comes from speaking up, from proving your side, from making them see your worth. But true power, it doesn't shout, it doesn't chase, it just withdraws. And when you withdraw the right way, calmly, without bitterness or explanation, you create what I call the paradox of quiet control. You stop pushing for closure, and suddenly they can't stop thinking about you. Here's why. The human brain hates unfinished stories. When you walk away without a dramatic goodbye, their mind is left standing at a cognitive cliff, mid-sentence, mid-thought, mid-emotion. It's like watching a movie that cuts to black right before the ending. The brain can't stand it. It wants to finish the scene, close the loop, make sense of the silence. That's why they start replaying every last moment between you, searching for clues. The silence doesn't just bother them, it consumes them. When you were speaking, they could predict you. They knew how to handle your emotions, your tone, your reactions. But when you went quiet, they lost their sense of control. Silence removed their map. Now, every possibility haunts them. Are you angry? Are you happy? Have you moved on? The mind fills in blanks with imagination, and imagination always exaggerates. That's how silence becomes louder than confrontation. It's no longer about what you said or didn't say. It's about what their own mind starts whispering. This is what I call the neural unfinished sentence. You didn't just stop talking, you left their thoughts mid-conversation, forcing their subconscious to keep answering questions you'll never ask again. They'll think of 100 scenarios, play out fake arguments in their head, even rehearse imaginary apologies they'll never send. Because that's what happens when control flips. You stopped chasing clarity, and now they're the one searching for it. Think about it, my friends. Every time you argued, every time you begged them to understand, you were feeding their certainty. They knew you still cared, but when you stopped reacting, that's when uncertainty became their punishment. And uncertainty is the most uncomfortable feeling the human brain can experience. It gnaws at their sense of dominance, making them check your page, ask mutual friends about you, or even show up where you might be. Not to talk, but to see if they still exist in your world. And here's the twist. Your silence doesn't only haunt them, it reveals them. It exposes who they are without your emotional attention to balance them out. The loud ones get quieter, the arrogant ones start reminiscing, the cold ones start overcompensating. Silence forces authenticity because there's no reaction left to manipulate. You see, silence is not passive. It's psychological chess. Every move you don't make is still a move. Every message you don't send still says something. You're creating space, and space is the most powerful teacher. It teaches them the value of your presence. It teaches them how much peace you brought into their chaos. And, most importantly, it teaches them that not everyone fights for attention. Some people build kingdoms in silence. It's not easy, I know. The mind craves closure. You'll feel that urge to explain yourself, to remind them who you are. But that's not strength, that's temptation. The Stoic path is quiet endurance. You win not by shouting your worth, but by embodying it. You show them what true control looks like: calm, grounded, detached. Because when you're no longer seeking their validation, you become the standard they measure everyone else against. So don't break your silence out of weakness. Keep it out of wisdom. The moment you stopped chasing, you stopped bleeding power. Let their mind loop endlessly while you build your peace in stillness. They'll come to realize that silence isn't the end of the story. It's the start of your self-mastery. Write this in the comments to remind yourself who you are. My calm speaks louder than words. Number 4. The mirror void. When they start imitating you to feel control again. My friends, have you ever noticed how after you pull away, they start to sound a little like you? The same phrases, the same jokes, even the same emotional tone you once carried. You see them post things that sound suspiciously familiar, or they start dressing, talking, even reacting in ways that feel like déjà vu. That's not coincidence. That's what I call identity echoing. It's when someone begins to imitate the person they once dismissed, not out of admiration, but as a way to regain control. Your silence has left such a void in their world that their mind tries to fill it by becoming the very energy it lost. Psychologically, this happens when guilt and confusion meet memory. When they can't access your attention anymore, their brain reaches for fragments of you, your voice, your rhythm, your confidence, anything that once gave them emotional balance. So they start copying pieces of you to convince themselves they're fine, to trick their subconscious into believing they've moved on. But the truth is, imitation is never healing. It's haunting. Every time they mimic you, they reinforce the fact that you're still alive in their psyche, that they haven't actually detached. They've just built a mirror version of you to look at when they miss the real thing. It's almost ironic, isn't it? The same person who once criticized your calmness now tries to act unbothered. The one who said you cared too deeply now posts quotes about boundaries and emotional detachment. But it doesn't land the same, because imitation without understanding is just performance. They can mimic your posture, but not your peace. They can repeat your phrases, but not your energy. That's the paradox of the mirror void. They try to fill your absence by reflecting you, but every reflection reminds them of what they can't recreate. Carl Jung once wrote that people don't see others as they are. They see them as reflections of themselves. When you withdraw, you remove their emotional mirror, and suddenly they can't recognize who they are anymore. You were their reflection of validation, comfort, and meaning. Without you, they look into emotional darkness, and it scares them. So their ego scrambles to rebuild your image inside them, to see something familiar again. That's why they start to mirror you, not because they've grown, but because your silence erased their emotional map, and now they're trying to redraw it using pieces of your old self. And here's where it gets deeper. They'll carry that echo into their new connections. They'll laugh the way you did with someone else, use the same words, bring the same warmth or wit that once belonged to you. And yet, it will never quite fit, because they're not sharing themselves anymore. They're sharing your shadow. They keep you alive in every new relationship by unconsciously injecting fragments of you into the dynamic. It's like trying to use a key from one lock to open another. The motion feels right, but the door never opens. So when you see them acting like you, don't feel replaced, feel confirmed. You left a blueprint so strong that they can't function without tracing it. Your silence didn't erase your influence, it magnified it. You're not just a memory to them. You've become their behavioral compass, even if they'd never admit it. That's the real form of control, not manipulation, but mastery over energy. You left quietly, yet your essence stayed. That's why Stoics say, "He who masters himself masters others." You mastered your reaction, and now they can't master their imitation. So stay still, my friends. Don't chase validation, and don't react to imitation. You've already won. You've become the mirror they can't escape. And that's the poetic justice of silence. It doesn't just make them miss you, it makes them become you. Write this in the comments to remind yourself of your impact. They copy me because I set the standard. Number 5. The ego starvation effect. Why your disengagement starves their validation system. My friends, here's a truth that most people don't want to face. Not every relationship was built on love. Many were built on ego. Some people don't seek connection. They seek confirmation. They want someone who makes them feel wanted, powerful, admired. And when you finally walk away, calmly, quietly, without the usual arguments or emotional explosions, you don't just leave them alone. You starve their ego. You take away the one thing they were addicted to, your validation. That's what I call the ego starvation effect. It's when your disengagement shuts down their validation system, like flipping off a power switch. Every time you responded, forgave, or explained, they got a little ego hit, a sense of importance, a reminder that they mattered enough to affect your emotions. But when you stopped reacting, their internal world collapsed. You cut the supply line, and now they're sitting in the emptiness of their own making. It's strange, isn't it? You'd think that when someone replaces you, they'd stop caring. But here's the paradox. Their mind doesn't crave love. It craves proof. Proof that they still hold power. Proof that they can still make you react. So when your silence denies them that proof, they spiral. They'll start posting vague messages, trying to trigger a response. They'll overperform their happiness online, not because they're thriving, but because they need to convince both you and themselves that they've won. This, my friends, is validation deficit syndrome, the ego's withdrawal phase. It's not heartbreak, it's identity crisis. You see, ego can't survive in silence. It feeds on reactions, good or bad, love or hate, it doesn't matter. When you walk away and stop providing emotional feedback, their ego starts to starve. That's when obsession replaces confidence. They scroll your page, looking for signs that you still care. They analyze your absence like detectives trying to solve a case that doesn't exist. That's not love. That's the mind trying to re-establish dominance. It's their way of saying, how dare you not need me? And here's where the stoic truth hits hardest. By doing nothing, you've taken everything back. You no longer play their emotional game. You're not competing for space in their world. You've outgrown it. And that scares them. Because for the first time, they realize you were never under them. You were holding them up. Their moving on act is just that, an act. A mask to cover the collapse happening underneath. Because when the ego loses its audience, it performs louder. Think of it like this. When a flame loses oxygen, it flickers wildly before dying out. That's them now. Every exaggerated post, every overconfident smile, every quote about freedom is just their ego gasping for air. But don't mistake the noise for growth. Growth is quiet. Real healing doesn't need to be seen. So while they perform, you evolve. You're not feeding your ego, you're feeding your peace. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." And that's exactly why your silence works. You're no longer resisting their control, so it fades. You've made peace with being misunderstood, and that's what truly breaks them. Because when someone thrives without closure, without explanation, without the need to prove a thing, that's power. That's the kind of strength people can't manipulate. So hold your ground, my friends. Let their ego starve while your peace grows. Don't break your silence to feed someone else's pride. You've already won by walking away without noise. They'll come back eventually, not because they found love, but because your absence revealed their dependency. And when that day comes, you won't crave revenge. You'll just smile, calm and untouchable, because you'll know peace is the highest form of dominance. Write this in the comments to remind yourself of your worth. My silence feeds my strength, not their ego. Number 6. Digital haunting. How they stalk you without admitting it. My friends, let's be honest. Silence doesn't end in the digital age. It just moves online. When you stop talking, they start scrolling. When you go quiet, they start searching, and that's what I call digital haunting. The invisible obsession that hides behind every click, every refresh, every late-night scroll. They might not message you, but trust me, their curiosity is alive and restless. They've turned your online presence into a ghost they visit in secret. You see, when someone loses emotional access to you, their brain doesn't simply accept it, it looks for substitutes. It starts searching for traces, fragments, anything that can recreate that sense of connection. That's where data looping begins, a psychological cycle where they keep checking your stories, rereading old messages, replaying songs from your shared playlists, all to trigger the old feeling your silence took away. Every notification becomes a potential memory, every post a puzzle piece they're desperate to decode. They're trying to understand your silence through algorithms. It's modern obsession disguised as casual scrolling. And here's the paradox. They'll mute you publicly, but monitor you privately. They'll tell their friends they've moved on, maybe even block you for a while to look strong. But the block isn't closure. It's control. It's their ego trying to regulate temptation. Because blocking gives them a false sense of authority. I decided this. But deep down, they're still haunted. They'll unblock you quietly, check your stories from a fake account, or ask mutual friends what you've been up to. They can't help it. You became a part of their digital rhythm, and when that rhythm stopped, their brain kept tapping the screen, hoping to feel you again. It's strange how technology has made detachment harder. Before, silence meant distance. Now silence means invisibility, and invisibility drives people insane. They can't tell if you're happy, hurt, or healed. They can't read your tone or your energy. So their imagination fills in the blanks, and imagination is always louder than truth. They start assuming. Maybe they're seeing someone else. Maybe they're over me. Maybe they don't care. But that uncertainty is what traps them. Every assumption leads to another check, another scroll, another round of data looping. And you're not even trying. You're just living. You're not posting for attention. You're just existing in peace. But your peace became their algorithmic addiction. They've turned you into a pattern on their screen, an emotional fingerprint they can't delete. That's the power of silence in a world addicted to visibility. When everyone else screams for attention, your stillness becomes magnetic. The stoic in you understands this perfectly. You don't need to prove you've moved on. The universe already did the proving for you. They thought they could erase you by replacing you, but your absence built an echo chamber in their mind. Every time they see something that reminds them of you, a song, a quote, a photo, their nervous system reactivates the memory. That's digital haunting. You're no longer in their life, but you still live in their neural feed. Carl Jung once said that what we repress always returns, just in another form. And that's what's happening here. They repressed the guilt, the regret, the longing, and it returned as scrolling, checking, stalking. They can't admit it, but they're still connected to you by invisible wires of curiosity and unfinished emotion. And you don't have to do a thing. The more silent you are, the louder those wires hum. So keep your peace, my friends. Don't break your stillness for digital noise. You're not the ghost. You're the mirror they can't stop facing. You're proof that true power isn't in being seen. It's in being felt. Write this in the comments to remind yourself of your power. I'm silent, but unforgettable. Number 7. The inversion law. When the runner starts chasing. My friends, life has a strange way of flipping the script when you least expect it. There's a silent law that governs energy, attraction, and emotion. I call it the inversion law. It's rooted in stoic truth and psychological fact. Whatever withdraws creates gravity. When you stop chasing, the dynamic reverses. The one who once ran from you begins to circle back, pulled by an invisible force they can't explain. They don't realize it yet, but the polarity has shifted, and now you are the center of their orbit. Think of it like a magnet. When you were reaching out, they felt safe pushing away because your energy filled the space. But once you took that energy back, the silence created a vacuum, and nature hates a vacuum. Their mind, their ego, their emotions all rush to fill that empty space. It's not magic, it's emotional polarity reversal. The rejecter begins to feel abandoned by their own decision. The one who thought they were in control now wrestles with the feeling of being forgotten. And the irony, it's not your presence haunting them anymore. It's your absence. You stop posting and suddenly they randomly pop up. You stay off social media for a while and their curiosity eats at them. They start asking around, pretending it's casual. Hey, have you heard from them lately? They block you, then unblock you, then watch your story without saying a word. Every small move is a symptom of that reversal. The mind trying to reclaim what it once took for granted. You've gone from being the chaser to being the mystery, and mystery is irresistible to the human psyche. Here's why this happens, my friends. When you were showing love, they received certainty. They knew your place. You gave them emotional stability, even when they didn't deserve it. But when you pulled back, they lost the mirror that reflected their worth. The ego panicked because it feeds on validation, not peace. That panic turns into longing, then into subtle pursuit. They'll tell themselves they're just checking up, but what they're really doing is chasing the same emotional security they once threw away. Carl Jung said, "What you resist not only persists, but grows in size." When they resisted your presence, it kept expanding in their subconscious. Now, as you stand calm and detached, they're being pulled back into the very energy they tried to escape. That's the inversion law in motion. Your silence creates gravity, your peace creates curiosity, your distance creates demand. And the beauty of it all, you're not even trying. You've stopped playing the game, and that's what changed the rules. Every step you take toward self-respect flips the polarity a little more. They can't reach you emotionally anymore, so they reach digitally, subtly, energetically. They might replay your old texts, revisit your photos, or suddenly bump into you somewhere familiar, all subconscious attempts to reattach themselves to the source of the calm they lost. This isn't revenge, it's balance. The universe always restores equilibrium. The one who gave too much learns to hold back, and the one who took too much learns what scarcity feels like. You don't have to teach them a lesson, life already is. That's why Stoics stay unmoved. Detachment isn't about not caring, it's about controlling your gravity. The calmer you are, the stronger your pull becomes. So keep walking in silence, my friends. Let the energy do the talking. You don't need to chase anyone who's already circling back. Stay grounded, stay centered, and let the universe remind them what happens when peace walks away. Write this in the comments to seal your power. My silence turns the chase. Number 8. The unspoken return, when their pride breaks before their silence does. My friends, not every return comes with an apology, and not every "I miss you" is spoken aloud. Some people are too proud to admit they're haunted. They'll never text, never call, never say your name directly. But they'll circle around your energy like a moth that can't resist the flame. That's what I call orbit behavior. It's when pride becomes the wall between them and honesty. So instead of stepping through the door, they keep walking around it, pretending they're not drawn in. But make no mistake, they feel the pull, and every small move they make proves it. They'll start showing up where you are, maybe in mutual comment sections, maybe on your friends' stories, maybe liking a post from months ago just to see if you notice. They'll mention you casually in conversations, act like it's nothing, but their voice softens when they do. They'll find reasons to accidentally cross your path. Same coffee shop, same event, same digital space. These aren't coincidences. They're breadcrumbs dropped by a mind that's losing its battle with pride. The silence you gave them didn't just hurt their ego, it broke their rhythm. Now they're orbiting the same peace they once ran from. Here's what's really happening beneath the surface. When you stay calm, you create emotional contrast. Your stillness exposes their noise. Your absence reveals their inner chaos. That imbalance eats at them until their ego begins to crack under its own weight. They can't admit they miss you because that would mean admitting they were wrong. So instead, they perform distance while quietly seeking closeness. That's the unspoken return, the dance between pride and longing, where silence says more than words ever could. It's like watching a planet pulled back into orbit by gravity. The farther they drift, the stronger the pull becomes. They'll test the connection again, just to feel the warmth, even for a second. A reaction from you would give them relief, but your silence keeps them suspended, stuck between regret and fascination. It's a beautiful kind of justice, isn't it? The one who once couldn't value your presence now worships your absence. And all you did was stop explaining yourself. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's what's happening here. Their unconscious longing is driving them back toward you, while their conscious mind keeps pretending they're fine. But every move they make gives them away. The likes, the follows, the random sightings, these are all pride's failed attempts at staying in control. Because eventually, pride breaks before silence does. And here's what you must remember, my friends. You don't have to chase, you don't have to prove, and you don't have to reopen old wounds. Just remain still, because when you move with peace, you become the mirror of what they lost. No one escapes a bond built on genuine depth. They might wander, they might resist, but the heart always finds its way back to what made it feel safe. The universe has its own timing, and when that time comes, their pride won't stand a chance against truth. So stay calm, keep your silence, let them orbit until the gravity of what they lost finally pulls them in. You don't need closure, your peace is closure, and the one who stayed composed always ends up in control. Write this in the comments to remind yourself of your strength. My silence brings them back. And so, my friends, here's the truth. Silence always wins in the end. The one who stayed calm, patient, and grounded becomes unforgettable. You didn't lose them, you found yourself. And when that kind of power settles in, life starts to move differently. They'll remember your peace long after they forget your words. So keep standing tall, keep trusting the silence, and never chase what your energy can attract naturally. If this message spoke to your soul, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe. Stay with me. We're just getting started.